The bus stop bench felt like ice against Jasmine's back as she checked her empty pockets for the third time in 10 minutes. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the reality hit her again. Everything was gone. Her wallet, her phone, her bus pass, even the $20 bill she kept folded in her shoe for emergencies. Someone had taken it all while she dozed off during her break at the hospital. Snow swirled around the glass shelter, and the digital display showed the next bus wouldn't arrive for another hour. At 2:30 in the morning, the city streets were nearly empty except for the occasional car rushing past, their headlights cutting through the darkness before disappearing again. Jasmine pulled her thin scrubs jacket tighter around her shoulders, but it did nothing to stop the cold from seeping into her bones. She had been on her feet for 14 hours straight, covering for a coworker who called in sick. Her supervisor had promised overtime pay, but that wouldn't help her now. The cold was so intense it made her teeth chatter and she could barely feel her fingers anymore. Every breath came out as a white puff that reminded her how alone she was on this frozen street. A sleek black car slowed as it approached the bus stop, its engine purring quietly. Jasmine tensed, remembering all the warnings about getting into cars with strangers. But as the vehicle pulled up to the curb, she could see the driver clearly through the passenger window, a well-dressed man with kind eyes who was looking at her with what seemed like genuine concern. The window rolled down and warm air drifted out. "Excuse me, are you okay?" His voice was deep and gentle. "You look like you're freezing." Jasmine wrapped her arms around herself tighter. "I'm fine, thank you." The words came out shaky, betraying how cold she really was. "It's almost 3 in the morning and it's below freezing out there." He studied her face, taking in her exhausted expression and the way she was shivering. "When's the last bus?" She didn't want to answer, but the cold was making it hard to think straight. "Not for another hour." The man's expression grew more concerned. "You'll get hypothermia waiting out here that long. Please let me give you a ride. I can see you're a nurse, I'm not some random guy trying to cause trouble." Something in his tone made her look at him more carefully. He was probably in his early 30s with dark hair and an expensive-looking coat. The car was clearly costly leather seats, a dashboard that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. But his eyes held genuine worry, not the predatory look she'd learned to watch for during her years working night shifts in the city. "I don't even know you," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. The cold was becoming unbearable and she could feel her strength fading. "My name is Vincent Romano. I own Romano Technologies downtown." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his business card, holding it where she could see it through the window. "I was driving home from a late meeting when I saw you here. Look, I understand why you're hesitant, but you're going to be in real danger if you stay out here much longer." Jasmine stared at the card, recognizing the company name from news articles she'd read. Romano Technologies was one of the biggest employers in the city. She'd heard of Vincent Romano. He was known for his charitable work and fair business practices. Still, accepting rides from strangers went against everything she'd been taught. But as another gust of wind cut through her jacket, she realized she might not have a choice. Her hands were so numb she could barely move her fingers, and her legs felt unsteady beneath her. The thought of sitting in that warm car was almost overwhelming. "I can call the police if you want," Vincent offered, seeming to sense her internal struggle. "They can verify who I am, or follow us to make sure you get home safely." The kindness in his offer surprised her. Most people would have driven on by now, especially someone wealthy enough to afford a car like that. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, his hands resting on the steering wheel. "My mother was a nurse. She worked nights at the county hospital for 20 years, often had to wait for buses in neighborhoods like this. She always said the people who kept the city running, nurses, janitors, security guards, were the ones society forgot about when they needed help most." Something in his voice told Jasmine he was telling the truth. Her grandmother had always taught her to trust her instincts about people, and right now her instincts were telling her that Vincent Romano was exactly who he claimed to be. "Where would you take me?" she asked. "Wherever you need to go. Home, or if you're hungry, there's a 24-hour diner about 10 minutes from here where you can warm up and get something to eat." Jasmine's stomach growled at the mention of food. She hadn't eaten since her lunch break, which felt like a lifetime ago. But more than hunger, it was the cold that made her decision. She could feel herself getting weaker by the minute, and the thought of waiting another hour in this weather seemed impossible. "Okay," she said finally, standing up on unsteady legs. "But I want to go to the diner first. I need to call my grandmother to let her know I'm okay." Vincent smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen all day. "Of course. Whatever you need." As Jasmine walked around to the passenger door, she caught sight of her reflection in the car's window. She looked exhausted and scared, her dark skin ashen from the cold. Her natural hair was pulled back in a bun that had come loose during her long shift, and her scrubs were wrinkled and stained from the demanding night at the hospital. Vincent leaned across to open the door for her, and as she settled into the warm leather seat, she felt some of the tension leave her body for the first time in hours. The heat was blowing gently, and soft jazz music played quietly from the speakers. "Thank you," she said, buckling her seatbelt with trembling fingers. "Don't mention it." Vincent put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb. "I'm Vincent, by the way. What's your name?" "Jasmine Williams." "It's nice to meet you, Jasmine. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances." He glanced at her as they stopped at a red light. "What happened to leave you stranded out there?" Jasmine felt embarrassment wash over her as she explained about falling asleep during her break and waking up to find everything stolen. "I should have been more careful. I was just so tired." "Hey, that's not your fault," Vincent said firmly. "You shouldn't have to worry about being robbed while you're trying to rest after working all night taking care of people." His anger on her behalf surprised her. She was used to people assuming that bad things happened to her because of her own mistakes or poor choices. Having someone immediately defend her felt strange but comforting. As they drove through the quiet city streets, Jasmine found herself studying Vincent's profile. He had strong features and an air of confidence that came from success, but there was also a gentleness in the way he drove carefully over the icy patches and kept the music low so they could talk. "Can I ask you something?" she said as they pulled into the diner's parking lot. "Sure. Why were you really out this late? Most business meetings don't go until 3 in the morning." Vincent turned off the engine and sat back in his seat. For a moment she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, "I couldn't sleep. I've been having trouble with that lately, so I went to my office to work. Sometimes keeping busy is easier than lying awake thinking about things." There was something in his voice that made Jasmine want to ask what kinds of things kept him awake, but she didn't feel like she knew him well enough for that kind of question. Instead she said, "I understand that. I work so many double shifts partly because I need the money, but also because it's easier than sitting at home worrying about my grandmother's medical bills." Vincent looked at her with new understanding. "Is she sick? Diabetes and heart problems. The medications are expensive, and she needs someone to check on her regularly." Jasmine felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "I work at 3 different places: the hospital, a clinic, and I do private care on weekends. It's still barely enough." "That must be exhausting." "It is, but she raised me after my parents died. I owe her everything." Jasmine opened the car door, grateful for the diner's bright lights visible through the windows. "She's probably worried sick about me right now." As they walked toward the diner entrance, Vincent said, "You can use my phone to call her if you want. I know you said yours was stolen." The simple offer of help, with no strings attached, made Jasmine's chest tight with emotion. She'd spent so long being suspicious of people's motives that she'd almost forgotten there were genuinely kind people in the world. "Thank you," she said, and meant it more than he could possibly know. The diner was warm and bright inside, with red vinyl booths and the comforting smell of coffee and bacon. A few other late-night customers sat scattered around a truck driver reading a newspaper, a young couple sharing a piece of pie, an elderly man nursing a cup of coffee at the counter. Vincent chose a booth near the back, and as they settled in across from each other, Jasmine realized this was the first time in months she'd sat down somewhere that felt safe and warm without worrying about how much it was going to cost her. "Order whatever you want," Vincent said, handing her a menu. "My treat." Jasmine started to protest, but he held up a hand. "Please. You've had a terrible night and you're helping me too. I hate eating alone and I was probably going to end up here anyway." As she looked at the menu, trying to decide between the cheapest options, Jasmine found herself wondering if this strange night might actually turn into something good. For the first time in weeks she felt like maybe everything was going to be okay. But she had no idea that someone had been watching them both from the moment Vincent's car had pulled up to the bus stop, and that her troubles were far from over. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a ponytail, approached their table with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. "What can I get you folks?" Jasmine ordered the cheapest item she could find, a bowl of soup and a piece of toast. But Vincent shook his head before she could finish. "She'll have the turkey club with fries and I'll take the same," he told the waitress, then looked at Jasmine. "You need real food after the night you've had." "I can't let you pay for all that," Jasmine protested, but Vincent waved her off. "It's just a sandwich. Besides, you're doing me a favor by keeping me company." He slid his phone across the table. "Why don't you call your grandmother while we wait for the food?" Jasmine picked up the expensive-looking device with careful hands. Her grandmother's number was one of the few she had memorized, and it rang only twice before a worried voice answered. "Hello? Grandma, it's me. I'm okay. Jasmine. Thank goodness. I've been calling your phone for hours. Where are you?" Jasmine explained what had happened, leaving out some of the scarier details to avoid worrying her grandmother more. As she talked, she noticed Vincent pretending to read the menu while clearly listening to make sure she was really okay. "You got in a car with a stranger?" Her grandmother's voice rose with concern. "I know it sounds crazy, but Grandma, I was going to freeze to death out there. And he's..." Jasmine looked across the table at Vincent, who was now genuinely reading his menu to give her privacy. "He's a good person. I can tell." After a few more minutes of reassuring her grandmother that she was safe and would be home soon, Jasmine ended the call and slid the phone back to Vincent. "She sounds like she loves you very much," he said. "She does. Sometimes I think too much." Jasmine wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, enjoying the warmth. "She worries about me working so much, but she doesn't understand that I don't have a choice." Vincent leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about her. What's she like?" Something in his tone made Jasmine feel like he genuinely wanted to know, not just making conversation. "She's amazing. Strongest person I've ever met. She was a teacher for 40 years, raised 5 kids of her own, then took me in when I was 8 and my parents died in a car accident. That must have been incredibly hard for both of you." "It was, but she never made me feel like a burden. She used to say I was her gift from God, sent to keep her young." Jasmine smiled at the memory. "She taught me everything: how to cook, how to study, how to stand up for myself. But mostly, she taught me that taking care of people is the most important thing you can do with your life." "Is that why you became a nurse?" "Partly. But also because it's steady work and the medical field always needs people. I wanted a career where I'd never have to worry about finding a job." Jasmine took a sip of her coffee. "What about you? What made you start your own company?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. "My father. He worked for other people his whole life, always worried about layoffs and budget cuts. I watched him stress about providing for our family, never feeling secure no matter how hard he worked. I decided I wanted to be in control of my own future." "That makes sense. Is he proud of what you've built?" A shadow crossed Vincent's face. "I hope so. It's hard to tell these days. He has Alzheimer's and most of the time he doesn't remember who I am." Jasmine felt her heart clench with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. That must be incredibly difficult." "It is. He was my hero growing up, this strong, brilliant man who could fix anything and solve any problem. Now he needs help with everything, and half the time he thinks I'm a stranger trying to hurt him." Vincent's voice was soft but filled with pain. "The worst part is knowing that somewhere inside he's still there, but I can't reach him." "Where is he now?" "I have him in a memory care facility. It's the best one in the state, with excellent staff and all the latest treatments, but..." Vincent trailed off, staring into his coffee. "I visit him every day, but I feel like I'm failing him. Like I should be doing more." Jasmine reached across the table and touched his hand gently. "You're not failing him. Taking care of someone with Alzheimer's is more than most people can handle on their own. The fact that you visit every day and make sure he has the best care possible shows how much you love him." Vincent looked up at her, surprise and gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you for saying that. Most people don't understand. I work with a lot of families dealing with similar situations. The guilt is always the hardest part." Jasmine squeezed his hand briefly before pulling back. "But your father raised you to be successful and caring. Even if he can't remember it now, that's still part of who you are because of him." The waitress returned with their food and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. Jasmine couldn't remember the last time she'd had such a good sandwich, or the last time she'd felt this relaxed while talking to someone new. "Can I ask you something?" Vincent said as they were finishing their meal. "Sure. How do you do it? Work 3 jobs, take care of your grandmother, and still manage to be kind to strangers? You could have been angry about getting robbed or suspicious of me or bitter about your situation. But you're not." Jasmine considered the question seriously. "I guess because being angry takes energy I don't have to spare. And my grandmother always taught me that how you treat people says more about you than about them. Plus, bad things happen to everyone sometimes. The difference is whether you let them make you hard or whether you use them to understand other people's struggles better." "That's remarkable wisdom for someone so young." "I'm 26. Not that young." Vincent smiled. "I'm 32 and I don't think I'm half as wise as you are." They were interrupted by Vincent's phone buzzing on the table. He glanced at it and frowned. "Problem?" Jasmine asked. Just my night security service checking in. They do regular sweeps of my house and office. He silenced the phone and put it back down. Probably nothing, but they're very thorough. Must be nice to have that kind of security. It's necessary when you have a successful business. Unfortunately, success sometimes attracts the wrong kind of attention. Vincent's expression grew serious. I've had some issues with competitors trying to steal company secrets, and a few years ago someone broke into my house looking for financial documents. That's scary. It is, but I've learned to be careful. That's why I have the security service, and why I'm probably more cautious than most people about who I trust. Jasmine looked at him curiously. Then why did you trust me enough to bring me here? Vincent met her eyes directly. Because sometimes you can tell when someone has a good heart. And because I think we both needed some kindness tonight. As they prepared to leave the diner, Vincent insisted on paying the check despite Jasmine's protests. Outside, the snow had stopped falling, but the air was still bitterly cold. Where do you live? Vincent asked as they got back in his car. Jasmine gave him the address and he programmed it into his GPS. As they drove through the quiet streets, she found herself hoping the ride would last longer. It had been so long since she'd had a real conversation with someone, and Vincent made her feel heard in a way that was both unfamiliar and wonderful. Thank you, she said as they pulled up in front of her grandmother's small house. For everything. I don't know what I would have done without your help. I'm glad I was there. Vincent turned to face her. Jasmine, can I ask you something else? Of course. Would you be interested in a job? I mean, in addition to what you're already doing if you need the money? Jasmine's heart jumped. What kind of job? My father needs a private nurse. Someone who understands dementia care and can be patient with him. The facility is excellent, but he needs more one-on-one attention than they can provide. I've been looking for the right person for months. I don't have any special training in dementia care. But you have experience with elderly patients and more importantly, you have compassion. That's what he needs most. Vincent paused. It would be good money, probably more than you make at all three of your current jobs combined. And it would give you more time to spend with your own grandmother. Jasmine stared at him, hardly believing what she was hearing. Why would you offer this to me? You barely know me. Because in the last few hours, you've shown me more genuine kindness and understanding than most people I've known for years. And because I think you'd be exactly what my father needs. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. Think about it. Vincent pulled out another business card and wrote something on the back. That's my personal number. Call me when you've decided. As Jasmine got out of the car, her mind was spinning with possibilities. A job that paid well and involved work she was trained for seemed too good to be true. But as Vincent drove away with a friendly wave, she realized that maybe, just maybe, her terrible night was turning into the beginning of something wonderful. She had no way of knowing that someone had followed them from the diner to her house, and was now taking pictures of her front door. Jasmine barely slept that night. She kept replaying her conversation with Vincent, wondering if his job offer was real or if she'd dreamed the whole thing. When her alarm went off at 6 a.m. for her morning shift at the clinic, she felt like she'd only just closed her eyes. Her grandmother was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her morning medications laid out in a neat row. Dorothy Williams was 73 years old but moved with the determined energy of someone much younger. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, and she wore a bright yellow sweater that made her dark skin glow. "Morning, baby," she said, looking up from the pill organizer. "You were out pretty late last night." "I told you what happened, Grandma." Jasmine kissed her grandmother's cheek and poured herself a cup of coffee. "The man who helped me offered me a job." Dorothy's tone was skeptical. Rich man offering jobs to pretty young women he just met. "I've heard that story before. It's not like that. He needs a private nurse for his father who has Alzheimer's. It's legitimate work. And you're sure about his intentions?" Jasmine sat down across from her grandmother. "I know it sounds crazy, but yes. He was respectful the whole time, never made me feel uncomfortable or unsafe. And Grandma, the money he mentioned, it could change everything for us." Dorothy studied her granddaughter's face carefully. "You've always been a good judge of character, but desperation can cloud judgment. Be careful, Jasmine. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is." "I know. But what if it isn't? What if this is just good luck for once?" Before Dorothy could answer, there was a knock at the front door. Both women froze. It was barely past 6 in the morning, and they weren't expecting anyone. Jasmine peered through the peephole and saw a man in a dark coat standing on their porch. He looked ordinary enough, middle-aged, average height, clean-shaven. but something about the way he stood, too still and too alert, made her nervous. "Can I help you?" she called through the door. "I'm looking for Jasmine Williams. I have some questions about last night." Jasmine's heart started racing. "Who are you?" "My name is Detective Morrison. I'm investigating a robbery in your area." Jasmine looked back at her grandmother, who had moved closer to listen. Dorothy shook her head slightly. Their neighborhood didn't see many detectives, especially not at dawn. "Can you show me some identification?" Jasmine asked. The man held up a badge to the peephole, but it was hard to see clearly through the small opening. "I just need to ask a few questions about what happened to you at the bus stop." Something felt wrong. Jasmine had reported thefts before, and police had never followed up so quickly or so early in the morning. Plus, how would he even know where she lived? "I'm sorry, but I'm late for work. Can we do this later?" she said. "It'll just take a minute. I understand you got a ride from someone last night. I need to know about that person." Now Jasmine was really alarmed. The only way this man could know about Vincent was if he'd been watching them. She thought about Vincent mentioning his security concerns, and suddenly this felt much more serious. "I really can't talk right now," she said firmly. "If you're a real detective, you can contact me through proper channels." She heard footsteps moving away from the door, and after waiting several minutes, she carefully looked out the window. The man was gone, but she could see a dark sedan parked across the street that hadn't been there the night before. "Grandma, I think we need to call the police," she said. "Real police this time," Dorothy agreed, already reaching for the phone. The actual police arrived within 20 minutes. Two uniformed officers who checked their IDs thoroughly and took Jasmine's statement about both the theft and the strange morning visitor. They seemed genuinely concerned about the fake detective and promised to increase patrols in the neighborhood. "Do you have somewhere safe you can stay for a few days?" one of the officers asked. "Until we figure out what this guy wanted?" Jasmine thought immediately of Vincent's job offer. "Maybe. Can I ask you something? If someone was watching me because of the person who helped me last night, would that put them in danger too?" "Possibly. Do you have a way to contact this person and warn them?" Jasmine pulled out Vincent's business card. "I have his number. I'd recommend calling him as soon as possible." After the police left, Jasmine sat in the kitchen with her grandmother, trying to process what had happened. The job offer that had seemed like a blessing now felt complicated and potentially dangerous. "Call him," Dorothy said decisively. "If someone's targeting both of you, he needs to know." Jasmine dialed Vincent's number with shaking hands. He answered on the second ring. "Jasmine? I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon." "Vincent, something's wrong. A man came to my house this morning pretending to be a detective, asking questions about you. The real police think someone might be watching both of us." There was a long pause. "Are you okay? Are you safe?" "For now, yes. But I think your security concerns might be more serious than you thought." "I'm coming to get you." "What?" "No, you don't need to. Jasmine, listen to me. If someone followed us last night and knows where you live, you're in danger because of me. I'm not going to leave you to deal with that alone. But I barely know you. Why would you put yourself at risk for me?" Vincent's voice was firm but gentle. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because after last night, I feel like I know you better than people I've worked with for years. Pack a bag for you and your grandmother. You're both coming to stay with me until we figure out what's going on." "Vincent, that's crazy. We can't just move into your house." "Yes, you can. I have plenty of space, excellent security, and you'll be much safer there than where you are now." He paused. "Besides, if you're going to take the job caring for my father, you'll need to be close by anyway. I haven't said yes to the job yet. Then consider this a trial period. Stay for a few days, meet my father, see if it's something you want to do. If not, I'll help you find somewhere else safe to stay." Jasmine looked at her grandmother, who had been listening to the conversation. Dorothy nodded encouragingly. "Okay," Jasmine said. "But just for a few days." "Thank you. I'll be there in 30 minutes. As Jasmine hung up the phone, she wondered what she was getting herself into. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry had been paying her grandmother's medical bills. Now she was apparently caught up in some kind of dangerous situation involving a man she'd just met, and about to move into his house. "You sure about this, baby?" Dorothy asked, starting to pack her medications into a travel case. "No," Jasmine admitted. "But I'm sure that staying here isn't safe, and I trust Vincent to protect us." "Why?" Jasmine thought about Vincent's kindness the night before, the way he'd talked about his father, the genuine concern in his voice when she'd called. "Because he could have just warned me over the phone and told me to handle it myself. Instead, he's putting himself at more risk to keep us safe." That tells me everything I need to know about who he is. As they packed their belongings, Jasmine tried to push down her nervousness about the unknown. She'd spent her whole life being cautious and self-reliant, and now she was about to trust her and her grandmother's safety to someone she'd known for less than 12 hours. But sometimes she realized taking a leap of faith was the only way forward. And maybe, just maybe, this leap would land her somewhere better than where she'd started. Outside, the dark sedan was still parked across the street, and someone inside was taking pictures of her house. Vincent arrived exactly 30 minutes later in a different car, a dark blue SUV with tinted windows that looked more practical than the luxury sedan from the night before. Jasmine watched from the window as he got out and surveyed the street carefully before approaching their front door. "Good morning, Mrs. Williams," he said when Dorothy opened the door. "I'm Vincent Romano. I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances." Dorothy looked him up and down with the critical eye of someone who'd spent decades evaluating people. "You're the one who helped my granddaughter last night." "Yes, ma'am." "And now you're bringing trouble to our door." Vincent's expression remained respectful but serious. "I'm afraid so, and I take full responsibility for that. Which is why I'm here to make sure both of you stay safe." "How do I know you're not the one we need protection from?" It was a fair question, one that showed Dorothy's protective instincts were sharp. Vincent reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "Would you like to call my security company? They can verify who I am and explain the situation. Or I can give you the number for the police detective who's been handling my case for the past 6 months." Dorothy studied his face for a long moment. "You have kind eyes like your mother probably did. But kind eyes don't always mean a kind heart." "You're absolutely right. All I can tell you is that I'm trying to do the right thing, and I hope you'll give me a chance to prove that." Something in his tone must have satisfied Dorothy, because she stepped aside to let him in. "The bags are by the door. Jasmine's in the kitchen, probably overthinking this whole situation." Vincent smiled at that. "She seems like someone who thinks things through carefully. Too carefully sometimes. She's been taking care of everyone else for so long, she's forgotten how to let other people take care of her." When Vincent found Jasmine in the kitchen, she was standing by the window watching the street nervously. "Is the car still there?" he asked. "Yes. Same spot, same person sitting inside." She turned to face him. "Vincent, I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening or why someone would be watching me." "I think I do." He pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. "Can we sit? I need to explain some things I should have told you last night." They sat down across from each other, and Vincent ran a hand through his hair before speaking. "Romano Technologies has been working on some breakthrough software artificial intelligence that can predict market trends with incredible accuracy. It's worth potentially billions of dollars, and it's made me some powerful enemies." "What kind of enemies?" "Competitors who want to steal the technology, investors who want to force me to sell the company, people who think they can intimidate me into making bad decisions." Vincent's jaw tightened. 4 months they've been trying different approaches, hacking attempts, industrial espionage, even threats. "And you think they're targeting me to get to you?" "I think they saw us together last night and decided you might be someone they could use as leverage." Vincent reached across the table and touched her hand gently. "Jasmine, I am so sorry. I never meant to put you in danger. It's not your fault. You were helping me. But now you're caught up in something that has nothing to do with you, and I need to fix that." Dorothy appeared in the doorway. "Are we going to sit here talking all day, or are we going to get out of here before whoever's in that car decides to do something besides watch?" Vincent stood up immediately. "You're right. We should go." He carried their bags to the SUV while Jasmine and Dorothy locked up the house. As they walked to the car, Jasmine could feel eyes watching them from the dark sedan. She tried not to look directly at it, but her skin crawled with the knowledge that someone was studying their every move. Vincent opened the car doors for both women, making sure Dorothy was comfortable in the front passenger seat before helping Jasmine into the back. As he started the engine, he glanced in the rearview mirror. "The sedan's pulling out behind us," he said calmly. "Don't worry, I expected that." "What are we going to do?" Jasmine asked. "Lose them." Vincent's voice was confident as he pulled away from the curb. "I've had to do this before." For the next 20 minutes, Vincent drove through the city with the skill of someone who knew every street and shortcut. He made sudden turns, doubled back on himself, and used parking garages and one-way streets to confuse their tail. Jasmine watched through the rear window as the sedan fell further and further behind until it finally disappeared completely. "How did you learn to drive like that?" Dorothy asked, sounding impressed despite herself. "Growing up in this city, plus a few defensive driving courses when the threats started getting serious." Vincent turned onto a tree-lined street filled with elegant houses. We're almost there. Vincent's house was more modest than Jasmine had expected, a beautiful colonial-style home with a wide front porch and well-maintained gardens, but not the mansion she'd imagined. It looked like a family home rather than a billionaire's showcase. "This is where you live?" she asked as they pulled into the driveway. "I know it's not what you probably expected. I could afford something much bigger, but this was my parents' house. I grew up here and it feels like home in a way nowhere else ever could." The inside of the house confirmed Jasmine's impression. The furniture was comfortable rather than fancy, and family photos covered the mantelpiece and side tables. Everything was clean and well-maintained, but it felt lived in and welcoming. "Your mother decorated this?" Dorothy asked, running her hand along a handmade quilt draped over the back of the sofa. "Most of it, yes. I've changed a few things over the years, but I wanted to keep the feeling she created." Vincent set their bags down in the foyer. "She always said a house should feel like a hug when you walk through the door." "Smart woman," Dorothy said approvingly. Vincent showed them to their rooms. Dorothy would stay in the guest room on the first floor, which had its own bathroom and was close to the kitchen. Jasmine's room was upstairs, with a window that looked out over the back garden. "This is beautiful," Jasmine said, looking around at the soft blue walls and antique furniture. "But I feel like we're imposing." "You're not imposing. You're helping me feel less alone in this big house." Vincent paused in the doorway. "And if you decide to take the job with my father, you'll need to be comfortable here anyway." "About that job, can you tell me more about what it would involve?" "Why don't I show you? He's in a memory care facility about 15 minutes from here. We could visit him this afternoon if you're feeling up to it." Jasmine nodded. "I'd like that." "Good. But first, let's get you both settled and fed. You must be exhausted." As Vincent went downstairs to make lunch, Jasmine unpacked her few belongings in the spacious room. It had been years since she'd stayed anywhere this comfortable, and she felt a mixture of gratitude and unease. She wasn't used to accepting help, especially not from someone she barely knew. Her phone buzzed, a text from her supervisor at the hospital asking where she was. Jasmine realized she'd been so focused on the morning's events that she'd forgotten to call in sick to her day shift at the clinic. She was going to lose pay she couldn't afford to lose, but staying safe had to be the priority. She was about to text back when she heard voices from downstairs, Vincent talking to someone at the front door. The conversation sounded tense, and Jasmine crept to the top of the stairs to listen. "I told you I'm not interested in selling," Vincent was saying. "Mr. Romano, you're being unreasonable. Our offer is more than generous. Your offer is an attempt to steal my company for a fraction of what it's worth. The answer is no. You might want to reconsider. Things could get complicated for you if you keep refusing to cooperate." "Is that a threat?" "It's a friendly warning. Good day, Mr. Romano." Jasmine heard the front door close and Vincent's footsteps as he walked back toward the kitchen. She came downstairs to find him standing at the window, watching a black town car pull away from the curb. "More trouble?" she asked. Vincent turned, his expression grim. "Representatives from Blackstone Industries. They've been trying to buy my company for months, getting more aggressive each time I refuse." "Do you think they're the ones who had us followed?" "I'm starting to think so. Blackstone has a reputation for playing dirty when they want something badly enough." Dorothy appeared from the kitchen, where she'd been making herself tea. "Sounds like you've made some powerful enemies, young man." "I have. And I'm sorry you two got caught in the middle of it." "Don't apologize for standing up for yourself," Dorothy said firmly. "But you need to be smart about how you handle this." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can't just wait for them to escalate. You need to take control of the situation." Vincent looked at Dorothy with new respect. "What would you suggest?" "Evidence. If they're following people, making threats, trying to intimidate you, then they're breaking the law. You need to document everything and get the authorities involved." "I've tried that. They're too careful, too connected. Nothing sticks." "Then you need to be smarter than they are." As they ate lunch together, Jasmine found herself watching Vincent carefully. He was clearly under enormous pressure, but he was handling it with a grace and determination that impressed her. She was also noticing other things: the way he made sure Dorothy had everything she needed, how he listened carefully when either of them spoke, the genuine concern in his eyes when he looked at her. "Can I ask you something?" she said as they were finishing their meal. "Of course. Why did you really offer me the job with your father? I mean, before all this started. Was it just because you felt sorry for me?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Partly yes. But mostly because I saw something in you that I recognized." "What?" "Someone who puts other people's needs before their own, even when it costs them. Someone who works incredibly hard but never complains about it. Someone who has a good heart despite having every reason to be bitter about life. He met her eyes. My father was like that. He would have liked you. Would have. He's still alive, but the man I knew is mostly gone. Some days he doesn't remember his own name, let alone mine. Jasmine felt her heart ache for him. That must be incredibly painful. It is. But maybe having someone like you spend time with him would help. Even if he can't remember who you are, he might feel the kindness in your presence. I'd like to meet him, Jasmine said. Not just to consider the job, but because he's important to you. Vincent's smile was the first genuinely happy expression she'd seen from him all day. Thank you. That means more to me than you know. As they prepared to leave for the memory care facility, Jasmine realized that somewhere in the space of 36 hours, her life had completely changed. She was staying in a stranger's house, potentially starting a new job, and getting involved in a situation that could be dangerous. But for the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The Evergreen Memory Care Center was nothing like the sterile nursing homes Jasmine had visited in her professional work. The building looked more like a luxury hotel with warm lighting, comfortable furniture, and gardens visible through every window. Soft classical music played in the background, and the staff moved with the unhurried confidence of people who genuinely cared about their work. This is beautiful, Jasmine said as they walked through the main lobby. I wanted the best for him, Vincent replied, signing them in at the reception desk. He spent his whole life taking care of other people. He deserves to be somewhere that feels like home. They took the elevator to the second floor, where Vincent led them down a hallway lined with family photos and artwork. He stopped at a door with Robert Romano, written in elegant script on a nameplate. Before we go in, Vincent said, his hand on the door handle, I should warn you that he might not recognize me today. Sometimes he thinks I'm a stranger, or that I'm someone from his past. It can be difficult. I understand, Jasmine said gently. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together. Vincent knocked softly before opening the door. The room beyond was spacious and bright, with a hospital bed positioned to look out over the gardens. A man in his 70s sat in a recliner by the window, staring out at the trees with a distant expression. Robert Romano had been a handsome man in his younger years, and traces of that remained in his strong jaw and intelligent eyes. But there was a fragility to him now, a confusion that clouded his features and made him seem smaller than he probably was. Hi, Dad, Vincent said, approaching the chair slowly. I brought some friends to meet you. Robert looked up at his son with polite interest but no recognition. That's nice of you, young man. I don't get many visitors. Vincent's face tightened with pain, but he kept his voice steady. This is Jasmine and this is Dorothy. They're nurses. Nurses. Robert's expression brightened. My wife was a nurse. Beautiful woman, smart as a whip. Have you met her? No, sir, but I'd love to hear about her, Jasmine said, pulling up a chair next to Robert's. Something in her tone seemed to focus his attention. Maria was the best nurse in the whole hospital, Robert said, his voice becoming stronger. She could make anyone feel better just by walking into their room. She had this way of talking to people that made them feel like they mattered. Vincent sat down on Robert's other side, and Jasmine noticed how carefully he positioned himself close enough to be supportive, but not so close as to seem threatening if his father didn't recognize him. She sounds wonderful, Jasmine said. What was your favorite thing about her? Her laugh. She laughed at everything, my terrible jokes, funny things that happened at work, even her own mistakes. She said life was too short not to find joy in the little things. Robert's eyes grew distant. I can still hear it sometimes when the wind blows through the trees just right. Dorothy, who had been quietly observing, moved closer. How long were you married, Robert? 42 years. Best years of my life. Robert looked at Dorothy with sudden focus. You remind me of her, you know. Something about your eyes. I'll take that as a compliment, Dorothy said warmly. For the next hour, they sat with Robert as he told stories about his wife, his work as an electrician, and his son's childhood. Sometimes he was completely lucid, remembering details with perfect clarity. Other times he seemed confused about when things had happened or who he was talking to. But throughout it all, Jasmine noticed that he responded well to patient, gentle conversation. You're very good with him, Vincent said quietly when Robert dozed off in his chair. He's a sweet man. I can see where you get your kindness from. Some days he's angry or scared, doesn't want anyone near him. But today he seems peaceful. Jasmine watched Robert's sleeping face, noting the way Vincent's presence seemed to comfort him even when he didn't recognize his son. Love doesn't disappear just because memory does. He might not remember who you are, but he feels safe with you. Do you really think so? I know so. It's something you learn working with dementia patients. The emotional connections remain even when the cognitive ones fade. As they prepared to leave, Robert woke up and looked directly at Vincent. For a moment, his eyes were completely clear. Thank you for coming to see me, son. I know it's hard. Vincent's breath caught. Dad. But the moment of clarity was already gone, and Robert was looking at him with polite confusion again. I'm sorry, do I know you? It's okay, Vincent said, leaning down to kiss his father's forehead. I'll see you tomorrow. In the car on the way back to Vincent's house, none of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, Dorothy broke the silence. He's lucky to have you, she told Vincent. Not everyone would visit every day, especially when it's so painful. I keep hoping for more moments like that one at the end, Vincent said. Where he remembers even if it's just for a second. Those moments are gifts, Jasmine said. They mean he's still fighting, still there underneath everything else. Would you consider taking the job? Vincent asked suddenly. I know it's a lot to ask, but I think you could help him in ways the staff here can't. Jasmine had been thinking about this since they'd left the facility. What exactly would you need me to do? Spend time with him during the day. Talk to him, maybe read to him or play music. Help him with physical therapy exercises. Just be there so he's not alone so much. And the pay. Vincent named a figure that made Jasmine's eyes widen. It was more than she made at all three of her current jobs combined. That's too much, she said automatically. No, it's not. It's what the job is worth to me. But Vincent, I can't take that much money from you. Why not? You'd be providing a service that's incredibly valuable to me. You'd be giving my father the kind of care and attention he deserves, and you'd be giving me peace of mind knowing he's not alone. Dorothy turned in her seat to look at Jasmine. Baby, sometimes you have to let people help you. This man is offering you good money for honest work. There's no shame in that. But what if I'm not good enough? What if I can't help him? You helped him today, Vincent said firmly. I saw it. He was calmer with you than he's been with anyone in months. Jasmine thought about her grandmother's medical bills, about the exhaustion of working 3 jobs, about the possibility of actually having financial security for the first time in her adult life. Okay, she said finally. I'll try it. But I want to start slowly, maybe a few hours a day at first, to see how he responds to me. Whatever you're comfortable with. As they pulled into Vincent's driveway, Jasmine realized she was making a decision that would change her life completely. She would be giving up her other jobs, moving into Vincent's house and becoming part of his family's story. But more than that, she was allowing herself to trust someone in a way she hadn't since her parents died. She was letting Vincent take care of her, and she was taking on the responsibility of caring for the person who mattered most to him. That evening, as they sat in Vincent's living room after dinner, Jasmine found herself studying his face as he read through some business documents. He was handsome, certainly, but it was more than that. There was a steadiness to him, a quiet strength that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. What are you thinking about? He asked, looking up from his papers. Just how strange life is. 24 hours ago, I was freezing at a bus stop, and now I'm sitting in your living room planning to take care of your father. Do you regret it? Jasmine considered the question seriously. No. Scared maybe. But not regretful. What scares you? Lots of things. Disappointing you. Not being able to help your father. Getting too comfortable with this arrangement. Why would getting comfortable be scary? Jasmine looked at him directly. Because I'm not used to depending on other people. I've been taking care of myself and my grandmother for so long, I've forgotten how to let anyone else help. Vincent set down his papers and leaned forward. Maybe it's time to learn. Maybe it is. As they talked late into the evening, Jasmine felt something shifting between them. The crisis that had brought them together was still there, but underneath it was something warmer and more personal. She was beginning to see Vincent not just as her rescuer or her employer, but as a man she genuinely cared about. And from the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention, she suspected he might be feeling the same way. Jasmine's first week working with Robert Romano fell into a comfortable routine. She would arrive at Evergreen at 9 in the morning and spend 4 hours with him, returning to Vincent's house in the afternoon to help Dorothy settle in and prepare dinner. The arrangement felt natural in a way that surprised her. Robert seemed to respond well to her presence. Some days he was more confused than others, but he rarely became agitated when she was around. She learned to follow his lead in conversations, letting him tell the same stories multiple times without correction, and finding ways to engage him in simple activities that brought him joy. "You're wonderful with him," Vincent said one evening as they walked through his back garden. "The staff at Evergreen says he's been much calmer since you started visiting. He's a good man. It's easy to care about him. Even when he doesn't remember who you are? Especially then. He's still your father, Vincent. The love you have for him is still there, even if he can't always recognize it." Vincent stopped walking and turned to face her. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Always know exactly the right thing to say. Always make everything seem manageable, even when it feels impossible." Jasmine felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. "I guess I've had practice dealing with difficult situations. It's more than that. You have this way of making people feel understood." Vincent's voice was soft in the evening light. "I haven't felt this settled in a long time." They were standing very close now, and Jasmine could smell his cologne, could see the way the setting sun brought out the gold flecks in his brown eyes. For a moment she thought he might kiss her, and she realized she wanted him to. But then her phone rang, breaking the spell. The caller ID showed her supervisor from the hospital. "I should take this," she said, stepping back. "Jasmine, where have you been?" Her supervisor's voice was sharp with annoyance. "You've missed 4 shifts this week without proper notice." "I called in sick," Jasmine protested. "Being sick for 4 days requires a doctor's note, which you haven't provided." "I'm sorry, but I have to let you go." Jasmine's heart sank. She'd been so focused on her new job with Robert that she'd handled her old responsibilities poorly. "Please, I can explain. The decision's already been made. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you." As Jasmine hung up the phone, Vincent moved closer. "What happened?" "I lost my job at the hospital. I handled the transition badly, and now..." She felt tears starting to form. "Now I'm completely dependent on you. If this doesn't work out, I have nothing to fall back on." "Hey." Vincent's hands were gentle on her shoulders. "It's going to work out. You're amazing at what you do, and even if something happened with my father's care, I would help you find another position." "You can't promise that." "I can promise that I won't let you end up back where you started. You're not alone anymore, Jasmine." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight with emotion. She'd been independent for so long that accepting help felt like stepping off a cliff. But Vincent made her feel like someone would catch her if she fell. Their moment was interrupted by the sound of Vincent's phone buzzing. He looked at the screen and frowned. "It's my security company. They only call if there's a problem." "Mr. Romano?" The voice on the other end was professional but urgent. "We've detected unusual activity around your property. Someone's been testing your security system." "What kind of testing?" "Checking sight lines, timing patrol routes, looking for weak points in your perimeter. We think someone's planning something." Vincent's expression grew grim. "How long has this been going on?" "We noticed it yesterday, but it could have been happening longer. We've increased patrols and activated additional sensors." "Good. Keep me informed." As Vincent hung up, Jasmine felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. "This is because of me, isn't it? Because they know I'm staying here." "We don't know that. Vincent, I'm putting you and my grandmother in danger. Maybe I should leave." "Absolutely not." Vincent's voice was firm. "If they're escalating, it's because their previous tactics aren't working. Running away won't solve anything." "But..." "No buts. You're safer here than anywhere else, and I'm not going to let them intimidate us into making bad decisions." They went inside to find Dorothy in the kitchen, putting away the dinner dishes. She took one look at their faces and set down the dish towel. "What's wrong?" she asked. Vincent explained about the security company's call while Jasmine told her about losing her job. Dorothy listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each detail. "These people are playing for keeps," she said finally. "They're not just trying to scare you anymore." "What do you think we should do?" Vincent asked. "Fight back. But smart." Dorothy's voice carried the authority of someone who'd dealt with bullies before. "You can't just wait for them to make the first move. The police said they need evidence of actual wrongdoing. Then we get them evidence." Vincent and Jasmine looked at each other, then back at Dorothy. "What do you mean?" Jasmine asked. "I mean we set a trap. Give them something they want badly enough to break the law for, then make sure we're recording when they do it." "Grandma, that sounds dangerous." "Everything worth doing is dangerous, baby. The question is whether you're going to let these people control your life, or whether you're going to take control back." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, thinking. "What kind of trap?" "That's for you to figure out. But I know one thing: if you keep reacting to them instead of acting, they're going to win eventually. As they discussed options late into the night, Jasmine found herself watching Vincent with new appreciation. He was under enormous pressure, but he was handling it with a calm determination that impressed her. He listened to everyone's ideas, asked thoughtful questions, and never lost his temper even when the situation seemed hopeless. "Can I ask you something?" she said when Dorothy had gone to bed. "Of course. Why is your company so important to you? I mean, why not just sell it and avoid all this trouble?" Vincent was quiet for so long that Jasmine thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally he said, "Because it's not just about the money. The software we've developed could change how people make financial decisions. It could help working families avoid bankruptcy, help small businesses succeed, help people plan for retirement. If Blackstone gets control of it, they'll use it to make themselves richer while everyone else suffers. So this is about more than just your success. It's about making sure something good doesn't get corrupted by greed." Jasmine felt her heart swell with admiration. "That's why you're worth fighting for." Vincent looked at her with surprise. "What? You could take their money and walk away. You could sell the company and live comfortably for the rest of your life. But you won't because you care more about doing the right thing than taking the easy path." "I don't feel very heroic right now." "Heroes never do. That's what makes them heroes." As they said goodnight and went to their separate rooms, Jasmine realized she was falling in love with Vincent Romano. Not just because he was kind and successful, but because he was the kind of man who would fight for what he believed in, even when it cost him everything. But as she lay in bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were just beginning. Outside her window, she could hear the sound of cars driving slowly past the house, and she wondered if their enemies were already closer than they thought. The breakthrough came 3 days later in the most unexpected way. Jasmine was at Evergreen with Robert, helping him with his afternoon physical therapy exercises, when she noticed a man in a maintenance uniform watching them through the window. At first, she didn't think much of it. The facility had numerous maintenance workers, and it wasn't unusual to see them around the building. But something about the way he was watching felt wrong. His attention was too focused, too intense for someone who was supposed to be working. "Robert, I'll be right back," she said, settling him back in his chair. "I need to check on something." She stepped into the hallway and looked toward the window, but the man was gone. Jasmine walked to the nurse's station and asked about the maintenance worker. "What maintenance worker?" the charge nurse asked. "We don't have anyone scheduled for this floor today." Jasmine's blood ran cold. There was a man in a maintenance uniform watching Mr. Romano's room. He was outside the window about 5 minutes ago. The nurse immediately called security, and within minutes the facility was conducting a thorough search. They found no sign of the intruder, but security footage showed a man in coveralls entering through a side door that was supposed to be locked. "This is very serious," the security director told Jasmine. "We need to notify the police and Mr. Romano immediately." Vincent arrived at Evergreen within 20 minutes, his face tight with worry. "Are you okay? Is my father okay?" "We're both fine, but Vincent, they were watching him. They know where he is." Vincent spoke quickly with the security director and facility administrator, arranging for additional security measures and restricted access to Robert's floor. Then he turned to Jasmine. "We need to get you out of here. If they're bold enough to break into a secure facility, they're escalating." "What about Robert?" "He'll be safe here. Evergreen is increasing security, and I'm hiring private guards for his floor." Vincent's voice was grim. "But you're the one they're really after." As they drove back to Vincent's house, Jasmine felt a mixture of fear and anger. Why are they doing this? What do they think they'll accomplish by threatening innocent people? They think they can break me down, make me desperate enough to accept their offer. Vincent's hands were tight on the steering wheel. They're wrong. What if they're not? What if they keep escalating until someone gets hurt? Then we stop them first. When they arrived at the house, Dorothy met them at the door with a worried expression. "There's been a development," she said. "The police called. They want to talk to both of you." Detective Sarah Chen was waiting in the living room, a serious-looking woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She'd been investigating the threats against Vincent for months and had finally made a breakthrough. "We arrested someone this morning," she announced. "A private investigator named Marcus Webb who was caught trying to hack into your company's servers. He's been working for Blackstone Industries." Vincent leaned forward. "He's talking? He's trying to cut a deal." According to Webb, Blackstone has been conducting what they call pressure campaigns against several tech companies they want to acquire. Industrial espionage, intimidation, even stalking family members. "That's what's been happening to us," Jasmine said. Exactly. Webb says they've been watching both of you for weeks, trying to find leverage they could use against Mr. Romano. When they saw you together, they decided you might be someone he cared about. So they've been threatening her to get to me. Yes, but here's the thing, Webb is small time. He's not the one making the decisions. We think there's someone higher up in Blackstone who's been orchestrating this whole campaign. Dorothy spoke up from her chair by the window. Someone with a lot to lose if Vincent doesn't sell. That's our thinking too, Detective Chin agreed. We need to find out who's really behind this. How do we do that? Vincent asked. By giving them what they want. Or making them think we are. The detective's plan was simple but risky. Vincent would contact Blackstone and agree to a meeting to discuss selling his company. During the meeting, he would be wearing a wire, hoping to get the real decision makers to reveal their illegal tactics. It's dangerous, Detective Chin warned. If they realize what you're doing, they could become violent. More dangerous than letting them continue to escalate? Vincent asked. Probably not. As they discussed the details of the plan, Jasmine felt her anxiety growing. The idea of Vincent putting himself at risk made her stomach clench with fear. I don't like this, she said when the detective had left. What if something goes wrong? Nothing will go wrong. The police will be watching and I'll be in a public place. But what if they figure out what you're doing? Vincent moved closer to her, taking her hands in his. Jasmine, I need you to trust me. This is the only way to end this situation. If we don't stop them now, they'll keep coming after us. I know, but... She looked into his eyes, seeing the determination there. I'm scared of losing you. The admission surprised them both. Vincent's expression softened, and he reached up to touch her face gently. You're not going to lose me. I promise you that. You can't promise something like that. Yes, I can. Because I have too much to live for now. He was going to kiss her this time, Jasmine could see it in his eyes. But before he could, Dorothy cleared her throat from the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but there's something else we need to discuss. They turned to her, and she was holding a piece of paper with a serious expression. This was slipped under the front door while you were talking to the detective. I don't think it's good news. Vincent took the paper and read it aloud. Mr. Romano, your recent activities have been noted. We suggest you reconsider your position before someone gets hurt. This is your final warning. The three of them stared at each other in the silence that followed. They know about the police investigation, Jasmine said quietly. Which means they have someone on the inside, Vincent replied grimly. Or they've been watching the house, Dorothy added. Detective Chin returned within the hour, her expression grim when she saw the note. This changes things. If they know we're investigating, they might not take the bait. Or they might be more desperate, Vincent said. More likely to make mistakes. More likely to be dangerous, you mean? As they revised their plan, Jasmine realized that the situation had moved beyond simple intimidation. They were now dealing with people who were willing to threaten violence to get what they wanted. And she was terrified that Vincent might be walking into a trap that none of them could predict or control. The meeting with Blackstone Industries was scheduled for the next afternoon at the downtown Marriott Hotel. Vincent would meet with their representatives in the hotel's restaurant, a public space where the police could maintain surveillance without being obvious. Jasmine spent the morning at Evergreen with Robert, trying to keep her mind off her worry about Vincent. But Robert seemed to sense her distraction. You're troubled about something, he said during one of his clearer moments. It's nothing, Robert. Just some work stress. It's about my son, isn't it? His eyes were surprisingly sharp as he looked at her. He's in some kind of trouble. Jasmine was startled by his awareness. What makes you say that? I may not remember much, but I know my boy. He's got his mother's heart, always trying to do the right thing, even when it costs him. Robert reached out and took her hand. You care about him. Yes, I do. Good. He needs someone who sees him for who he really is, not just what he's accomplished. Robert, do you remember who I am? He smiled sadly. Not always. But I remember that you're kind to me, and that you make my son happy. That's enough. As Jasmine left Evergreen that afternoon, she felt a new sense of purpose. She wasn't just worried about Vincent, she was part of his life now, part of his family. And that meant she had a role to play in protecting what they'd built together. She arrived at Vincent's house to find him getting ready for the meeting. He was wearing a dark suit and tie, looking every inch the successful businessman. But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands weren't quite steady as he adjusted his cufflinks. How are you feeling? She asked. Nervous. Determined. Ready to end this. Detective Chin arrived to brief Vincent on the wire he'd be wearing and to go over the plan one more time. The device was small and nearly invisible, but Jasmine still felt anxious about it being discovered. "Remember, your job is just to get them talking," the detective told Vincent. "Don't push too hard, don't ask leading questions. Let them tell you what they want you to know. And if they threaten me directly? Then we move in immediately." As Vincent prepared to leave, Jasmine caught his arm. "Wait. I want to come with you." "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. I won't be in the meeting. But I could be in the hotel lobby or the coffee shop. Somewhere nearby where I can see what's happening." "Jasmine, I can't focus on the meeting if I'm worried about your safety. And I can't sit here doing nothing while you walk into a potentially dangerous situation." She moved closer to him. "Vincent, we're in this together now. That means we face it together." Detective Chen looked between them thoughtfully. "Actually, it might not be a bad idea. If something goes wrong, having someone nearby who knows the situation could be helpful." Vincent looked like he wanted to argue, but Dorothy spoke up from her chair. "Let her go, Vincent. The girl needs to feel like she's helping and you could use the backup." "Fine," Vincent said reluctantly. "But you stay in the lobby and if anything seems wrong, you leave immediately." "I promise." The Marriott downtown was busy with afternoon business travelers and tourists. Jasmine positioned herself in the lobby coffee shop with a clear view of the restaurant entrance while Detective Chen and her team spread out around the hotel. Vincent entered the restaurant exactly on time, and Jasmine watched as he was led to a table where two men in expensive suits were already waiting. Even from a distance, she could see the tension in Vincent's posture as he sat down. She'd been watching for about 10 minutes when she noticed something troubling. A man in a hotel uniform was moving through the lobby, but his movements seemed too purposeful, too focused. He kept glancing toward the restaurant, and something about his behavior reminded her of the fake maintenance worker at Evergreen. Jasmine pulled out her phone and texted Detective Chen, "Suspicious man in hotel uniform moving toward restaurant. Might not be staff." Within minutes, she saw plainclothes officers moving discreetly through the lobby. But the man in the uniform had disappeared. In the restaurant, Vincent was deep in conversation with the Blackstone representatives. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language suggested the discussion was intense. Then Jasmine saw something that made her blood run cold. The man in the hotel uniform was now behind the bar in the restaurant, and he was moving toward Vincent's table with what looked like a drink tray. She immediately called Detective Chen. "He's in the restaurant, approaching Vincent's table. He's disguised as a server. We're moving now." But Jasmine realized they might not be fast enough. The fake server was almost at Vincent's table, and she could see him reaching under the tray for something. Without thinking, she left the coffee shop and rushed toward the restaurant. "Excuse me," she called out loudly as she entered the dining area. "Vincent? I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent call for you." Every head in the restaurant turned toward her, including Vincent's and those of the Blackstone representatives. But most importantly, the fake server froze, his hand still under the tray. Vincent looked confused but played along. "Of course. Gentlemen, if you'll excuse me for just a moment." As Vincent stood up, Detective Chen and her team entered the restaurant. The fake server tried to back away but there was nowhere to go. "Police. Nobody move." The next few minutes were chaos. The fake server, who turned out to be carrying a syringe filled with an unknown substance, was arrested along with the two Blackstone representatives. Other diners were evacuated while the police secured the scene. "What was in the syringe?" Vincent asked Detective Chen as they gave their statements. "We won't know until it's tested, but my guess is some kind of sedative. They probably planned to drug you and make it look like you'd had some kind of medical episode. And then what? Probably rush you to a hospital they control, where they could keep you incapacitated while they forced through a sale of your company." Vincent looked shaken by how close he'd come to danger. If Jasmine hadn't been there. "She saved your life," Detective Chen said simply. Her quick thinking prevented a kidnapping at minimum and possibly worse. As they left the hotel, Vincent was unusually quiet. Jasmine walked beside him, still processing what had happened. "Are you okay?" she asked as they got into his car. "I should be asking you that. You put yourself at risk to save me. I told you we were in this together." Vincent pulled over at the first parking lot they came to and turned to face her. "Jasmine, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Jasmine felt her heart skip a beat. "Vincent, I know the timing is terrible and I know this whole situation is complicated, but I couldn't go another day without telling you how I feel." "The timing isn't terrible," she said softly. "And the situation isn't too complicated." "What are you saying?" I'm saying I'm falling in love with you too. This time, nothing interrupted them. Vincent leaned across the space between them and kissed her gently, and Jasmine felt like everything in her life had finally fallen into place. When they broke apart, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. What happens now? Now we go home and figure out our future together. Together? Together. As they drove back to Vincent's house, Jasmine realized that what had started as the worst night of her life had led to the best thing that had ever happened to her. She'd found not just love, but a sense of belonging that she'd never experienced before. But first they had to make sure Blackstone could never threaten them again. The arrests at the Marriott Hotel broke Blackstone Industries' illegal operation wide open. Within 48 hours, Detective Chin had search warrants for their offices and had uncovered evidence of similar intimidation campaigns against dozens of other companies. It was bigger than we thought, she told Vincent and Jasmine as they met in her office. Blackstone has been systematically targeting small tech companies for years, using everything from industrial espionage to outright kidnapping attempts. What happens to them now? Jasmine asked. The executives we arrested are looking at serious federal charges. Conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, corporate espionage. They're going away for a long time. Vincent leaned back in his chair, looking relieved for the first time in months. So it's really over? The immediate threat is over, yes. Blackstone is finished as a company, and their leadership is facing prosecution. You can go back to running your business without looking over your shoulder. As they left the police station, Vincent took Jasmine's hand. I have something I want to show you. He drove them to a beautiful park overlooking the city, where they walked along a path lined with flowering trees. The afternoon sun was warm on their faces, and for the first time since they'd met, Jasmine felt truly peaceful. This is where I used to come with my parents when I was a kid, Vincent said as they reached a bench with a view of the downtown skyline. My mother would pack sandwiches and we'd spend the whole afternoon here. It's beautiful. I wanted to bring you here because this is where I realized what I wanted my life to look like. He turned to face her. Jasmine, these past few weeks with you have been the happiest I've been since my mother died. You've brought light into my life in a way I didn't think was possible anymore. Vincent, you've changed my life completely. Not just financially but emotionally. You've shown me what it feels like to be truly cared for. I want to keep caring for you. For the rest of my life if you'll let me. Jasmine's breath caught as Vincent reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I know we haven't been together very long, and I know this might seem sudden, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. Jasmine Williams, will you marry me? Tears sprang to Jasmine's eyes as she looked at the ring, then at Vincent's hopeful face. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course I'll marry you. As Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, Jasmine felt like her whole world had shifted into place. The scared, exhausted woman who'd been stranded at a bus stop just weeks ago was gone, replaced by someone who felt cherished and secure and deeply loved. I can't believe this is real, she said, admiring the way the diamond caught the light. It's real. We're real. Vincent pulled her close and kissed her softly. And we're going to have an amazing life together. They spent the rest of the afternoon making plans. Vincent wanted to have the wedding soon. He said he didn't want to wait any longer than necessary to make Jasmine officially part of his family. They would live in his childhood home, which already felt like home to Jasmine too. What about my job with your father? She asked as they walked back to the car. I hope you'll keep doing it at least part-time. He's made so much progress since you started working with him. But if you want to do something else, we'll figure it out together. I love working with Robert. He's become like a grandfather to me. He loves you too. Even on his confused days, he asks about you. When they arrived back at the house, Dorothy was waiting in the kitchen with a knowing smile. Well, she said, looking at Jasmine's left hand. Did that boy finally work up the courage to propose? You knew? Jasmine asked, laughing. Honey, he's been carrying that ring around for a week. I was starting to think I'd have to propose for him. Vincent looked embarrassed. Was I that obvious? Only to someone who's been watching you two fall in love, Dorothy said warmly. Now come here and give me a hug, future grandson-in-law. As Vincent hugged Dorothy, Jasmine felt overwhelmed with gratitude. In the space of a few weeks, she'd gone from having almost no family to being surrounded by people who loved her. When's the wedding? Dorothy asked. We were thinking next month, Vincent said. Something small and simple. Simple is good, but it should still be special. Jasmine deserves a beautiful wedding. Grandma, I don't need anything fancy. I just want to marry Vincent. And you will, baby. But we're going to make sure it's a day you'll remember forever. As they spent the evening planning the wedding, Jasmine kept looking at her ring and marveling at how dramatically her life had changed. She thought about the night she'd been stranded at the bus stop, cold and scared and alone. If someone had told her then that it would lead to this moment, she never would have believed it. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked as they sat together on the couch later that night. "Just how strange life is. How something terrible can turn into something wonderful if you're open to the possibilities." "Are you happy?" he asked, taking her hand. "Happier than I ever thought possible." "Good. Because this is just the beginning." As Jasmine fell asleep that night in Vincent's arms, she felt a peace she'd never known before. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, but she would face them with a partner who loved her unconditionally. And for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't afraid of the future. 6 months later, Jasmine stood in front of the mirror in the bridal suite at the small church where she and Vincent would be married in an hour. The dress was simple but elegant, a flowing white gown with delicate lace sleeves that Dorothy had helped her choose. "You look beautiful, baby," Dorothy said, adjusting Jasmine's veil. "Your parents would be so proud." "I wish they could be here," Jasmine said softly. "They're here. Love like theirs doesn't just disappear, it gets passed down. And you're about to start your own family to love and protect." There was a soft knock at the door and Vincent's voice called out, "Can I come in? I have something for Jasmine." "You can't see her before the wedding," Dorothy protested. "I'll keep my eyes closed, I promise." Jasmine laughed. "Come in, but no peeking." Vincent entered with his eyes squeezed shut, holding a small wrapped box. "This is from my father. He wanted you to have it for today." Jasmine opened the box to find a delicate pearl necklace with a note written in shaky handwriting. "For my new daughter. Welcome to the family. Love, Dad." "He remembered it was my wedding day?" Jasmine asked, tears forming in her eyes. "He's been having more good days lately. The doctors think the consistent care and attention you've been giving him is helping slow the progression of his disease." Dorothy fastened the necklace around Jasmine's neck. "Perfect. Now get out of here before you ruin the surprise." As Vincent left, still with his eyes closed, Jasmine touched the pearls gently. Robert had been lucid for most of the past week, excited about the wedding and proud to be gaining a daughter-in-law. It meant everything to her that he would be there to see them married. The ceremony was small but perfect. Vincent's business colleagues and a few close friends filled the church, along with staff from Evergreen who had become like family to them. Dorothy walked Jasmine down the aisle, and Robert sat in the front row with the biggest smile she'd ever seen on his face. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Vincent Romano and Jasmine Williams, two souls who found each other in the most unexpected circumstances and discovered a love that will sustain them through whatever life may bring." As they exchanged vows, Jasmine looked into Vincent's eyes and saw their entire future together, the challenges they would face, the joy they would share, the family they would build together. "I promise to love you in sickness and in health," Vincent said, his voice strong and clear. "To support your dreams and share your burdens. To be your partner in all things from this day forward." "I promise to stand by your side through every storm," Jasmine replied. "To care for you and the people you love as if they were my own. To build a life with you based on trust, respect, and endless love." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the small church erupted in cheers. As Vincent kissed his new bride, Jasmine felt like her heart might burst with happiness. The reception was held in Vincent's backyard, which had been transformed with twinkling lights and flowers from Dorothy's garden. Robert managed to stay alert for most of the evening, dancing with Jasmine and telling embarrassing stories about Vincent's childhood to anyone who would listen. "I'm so happy for you both," he said to Jasmine during a quiet moment. "Vincent hasn't smiled this much since his mother was alive." "Thank you for welcoming me into your family," Jasmine replied. "You raised an incredible man." "No, I raised a good man. You made him incredible." As the evening wound down, Vincent and Jasmine found themselves alone on the back porch, looking out at the garden where they'd first almost kissed months earlier. "So, Mrs. Romano," Vincent said, wrapping his arms around his wife, "how does it feel to be married?" "Perfect. Everything about today was perfect. Even the part where Robert told everyone about the time I got my head stuck in the banister?" Jasmine laughed. "Especially that part. I love learning new things about my husband." "Well, you'll have a lifetime to discover all my embarrassing secrets." "I'm looking forward to it." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. "Do you ever think about that night at the bus stop?" Vincent asked. "Sometimes. It feels like a lifetime ago. If I hadn't driven by at that exact moment." But you did. And maybe that was meant to happen. You think we were meant to find each other? Jasmine turned in his arms to face him. I think sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. I think you saved me that night and I ended up saving you right back. You definitely saved me, Vincent agreed. In more ways than you know. As they kissed under the starlight, Jasmine reflected on the journey that had brought them together. She thought about the woman she'd been exhausted, struggling, afraid to depend on anyone. And she thought about the woman she was now loved, secure, part of a family that would always be there for her. What are you thinking about? Vincent asked, sensing her contemplation. Just how grateful I am. For everything the good and the bad that led us here. What happens now? Now we live happily ever after. You really believe in that? I believe in us. And that's enough. As they walked back into the house where Dorothy was already cleaning up and Robert was dozing peacefully in his favorite chair, Jasmine felt the deep contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you belong. She'd started as a stranger freezing at a bus stop and now she was home. Dear listeners, thank you so much for taking this journey with Jasmine and Vincent. Their story shows us that sometimes our darkest moments can lead to our greatest blessings. Love has a way of finding us when we least expect it, and the courage to trust someone new can transform our entire lives. I'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite moment in Jasmine and Vincent's story? Have you ever had an unexpected encounter that changed your life? Do you believe in love at first sight, or do you think true love grows over time like it did for our couple? And here's something to think about: if you were in Jasmine's position that cold night at the bus stop, would you have trusted Vincent enough to accept his help? Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the biggest rewards. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love connecting with readers who believe in the power of love to overcome any obstacle.